So what do you say we spend a little time around the garden today? All right. So this past weekend we got at least 6 inches of rain. I'm pretty sure we got more than that, but the rain gauge was full and it's been kind of cool. So the garden's still a little wet. Not a whole lot we can do in there until it dries out a little more. But this is a perfect time to take care of our garden tools, our hand tools, our wheel hose. The winter time's a great time to kind of, take care of the handles, treat those, get our blades nice and sharp, because spring will be here before we know it. But before we do a little tool maintenance, I want to show you kind of my arsenal of hand tools here behind me that I have hanging in my garden shed. On a previous video, I showed you all my different wheel hose and those wheel hose setups. But I want to kind of go through these hand tools here, and I'll tell you about which ones I use a lot, and I've got some I really hardly ever use at all, just stuff people sent us and just have hanging here because I didn't want to throw it away. All right, so let's start on the end here and we'll work our way down. The first one we got here is this old tool I found in the barn when we first moved here, and this was kind of actually the prototype to where I got the idea for our single tine cultivator. This one here has a kind of short little handle on it, not very long, but it was a good little tool. Works good for working close around plants. I like our single tine cultivator a lot better. I just keep that one because it's just kind of an old antique tool there. Everybody needs an axe. We got a little trenching shovel here. We don't use that one a whole lot. Here's some old, larger, or one older and one newer one. There's our field hoe there, that black one, we carry that one. I don't use these big hoes a whole lot. Probably the only time I use them is when I'm doing my last healing on my taters, and they work pretty good for throwing up a good bit of dirt around those taters that I can't heal with the wheel hoe. So I don't use those a whole lot, just a few times a year really. Got our compost shovel here. I use this puppy a lot, and nice handy tool there. That's a really good compost shovel. I think maybe we have those on the site still, I can't remember. Here's our most popular long handle tool, which is our push pull hoe. Use that one pretty good bit. I like that tool. Nice design. You can really clean up some weeds, do some nice quick efficient shallow weeding with that. Back here we've got this little spade, and I don't remember where this came from. Somebody sent it to us, wanting us to carry it on the side, and it's a good little tool. I just didn't we didn't want to carry it at the time, but I use it a good bit for digging up stakes and stuff, T-posts that are really stuck in the ground, digging around those. So I use that a little bit for that. Then behind there we've got our short single tine cultivator, which is a handy little tool if you're doing some real close work. Always got to have a few garden rakes there, little kind of fan rakes, clean out garden debris, stuff like that. And then this guy right here, I know you've seen me use a lot on the videos. It's even got a little bit of warp in it because I use it to tend to my fires too when I'm burning my limb piles. But this is one that I rehandled, and got a nice long handle on it. Just an awesome tool to have around the garden. Everybody needs a hard rake like that. Up here we've got some smaller hoes, and I use these a lot more than those bigger ones I showed you earlier. We've got a little triangle hoe right here. I use that one to make little mini furrows for planting. And then this little hoe right here works pretty good for getting out weeds and stuff. Maybe doing, some minor healing, just throwing a little bit of dirt to plants. We've got our diamond hoe here, which works similar to the push-pull hoe. Kind of lays flat on the ground and kind of cuts off those weeds. Do a lot of good work with this thing right here, sharp on all four sides. This one here needs some work. That's probably one of the ones I'm going to have to get to eventually today. Moving along, we've got our single tine cultivator right here, which is probably the long handle tool. One of them I use the most. Love this guy right here, working close around plants and weeding around double rows and stuff. Then our batwing hoe here, which I use pretty good bit. This is going to be the ones we work on today as well, getting that in a little better shape. We've got our 3-tine cultivator, which is a handy tool. You saw me use that on my last onion video, kind of scratching in that fertilizer. It's got some standard shovels here. Everybody needs just a regular old shovel. I got 3 of them, so I ain't the only one shoveling. Got an old little pitchfork there, I don't use much. Kind of tending to the fire maybe a little bit. Got our Hoss stirrup hoe here, which could maybe use a replacement blade. We carry the replacement blades on our website there. And I like this guy for getting out real thick grassy weeds. Got that rocking blade there. Really, really good heavy duty garden tool. That one there probably needs a little work. We got our digging fork right here. Really don't ever have to do a whole lot of maintenance on this guy. It's got that steel handle, and really don't have to sharpen those blades. But if you don't have one of those, that's the best digging fork in existence right there, folks. This tool I don't use a whole lot. This is kind of a hay fork. Call it a compost fork too. You could use it to turn compost or hay. I don't use it a whole lot, but that's a pretty good one. I think that one's made in Germany. Here's a spade. I don't think it's ever been used. Somebody sent it to us, but I've got it if I ever need it. Then we've got our bed rake. If I can get it down right here. You've seen me use that tons of times when I'm planting cover crops. That's what I use to kind of drag them in. And then lastly here, if I can get it down without knocking everything down, we've got our row maker tool, which is a handy little tool. If you're not using the wheel hoe to make a furrow and you want to make some real close planting furrows. All right, so let's do us a little tool maintenance. We're going to work on getting this bat wing hoe right here back in tip-top shape here in a minute. So I've got one of our wheel hoe success kits right here, and we sell this as an add-on with our wheel hose. We also sell it individually on the site. In addition to, you know, keeping your wheel hose nice and maintained, it works good for just about any garden tool, the stuff that's in here. So let's see what's in here. The first thing we've got is our file, which we're going to need to sharpen and kind of hone those blades. This is a nice double-sided file, so one side is double cut, which is going to take off more metal, and then this side here is single cut, which is kind of good for finishing that blade off, getting it nice and smooth and sharp there. Look in here, we've got a sanding sponge, which is going to be handy for kind of getting that rust off that blade, so we'll use that a little bit. We've got our linseed oil, which we're going to use to coat the blade, the metal, and to coat the handle, kind of condition the handle. And then we've got a 9/16 wrench here, which isn't necessarily handy with the hand tools, but for the wheel hoe, that's what you need to change all your attachments. So that's our wheel hoe success kit here. All good handy stuff for keeping your tools in tip-top shape. All right, so let's put our batwing hoe here in the vise. It's going to hold it in place for us nice so we can work on it and get it in there so it's not going to go anywhere. And the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of knock some of this dirt off here. Some of this kind of dirt and mud that's stuck on there. I just use this old brush I use to keep my workbench clean. I'll knock some of that dirt off there before we go to doing anything. Get it nice and clean there. Some of that on the back side is stuck a little bit. I'm going to take my file and kind of scratch it off. There we go. Get that nice and clean there. Then, as you can see there, we got a little rust working there. I'm going to kind of take that off. I'm going to take my little sanding sponge here. Just kind of work along that flat surface right there. Just kind of clean that up a little bit. Might not get all that rust off of there, but try to get a relatively clean surface so when we oil it later, we kind of help to prevent any further rust from happening there. Get that little shank right there too. Alright, we got that blade cleaned up nicely there with that brush and that sanding sponge there. most of that rust took off there. You can see that beveled edge right there. That's where we want to be working on now, doing a little bit of sharpening. So we got our file here I showed you earlier. You got your double cut side here, and then your single cut side here. We're going to start off with the double cut side, and then we're going to do the finishing work with the single cut side. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure you're moving the file this way, up towards the point of that bevel right there. You don't want to drag the file backwards, you just want to do it in one direction right there, going this way towards the tip of that blade. So you can do this with one hand, or I kind of like to use two hands so I can put a little pressure on it. And we want to kind of try to maintain the same angle that we have right there. So we're just going to kind of scoot it along here. Looking to eventually get is kind of a nice, really clean, almost mirror finish along here as we do this. And you can kind of tell when you're getting close here, because you'll feel less and less resistance when kind of pushing the file up against that metal, and you'll start to feel a little bit of a burr develop here on this sharp end. Now we don't want to get this like sharp as an axe or sharp as a knife. We want it sharp enough where it's going to do good work in our garden. So I've hit it pretty good with that double cut edge. It's starting to get pretty sharp there. Now I'm going to switch over to the single cut edge and finish her off here. Same concept, pushing it in one direction here. Alright, done with the file. Got us a nice smooth little shiny finish there. Pretty sharp right there. And if you rub your finger this way, you can kind of feel a little bit of a burr we created with the file. So I'm just going to take my sanding sponge and just keep it along that straight edge right there and remove that burr. There we go. Nice. Nice and sharp, useful garden hoe there. Like I said, it doesn't have to be sharp as an axe, sharp as a knife, but you want to be able to cut through even the hardest soils and dig up even the biggest, thickest, densest weeds there. Alright, we got our blade in good shape. Next thing I'm going to do is take some of this boiled linseed oil right here. You can use a paper towel, anything. I like using these old shop rags here. I'm going to coat this blade and all this metal really good, and that's going to help prevent any further rusting and just take good care of it there. So I'm going to be kind of liberal with this stuff here. Spill a little, it's not a big deal. And want to wipe down all the metal parts here, front and back of the blade, along that shank there, every little nook and cranny of this metal here. Wipe it down with that linseed oil. Now give us a nice little coating on there. Get a little bit of that fuzz from that rag, but that's all right. Just want to coat that down good with that oil. And want to let this oil kind of sit on there a little while before we go to use this thing, put it in the ground. That's why it's good to do it today, when I know it's going to be a few more days before we can get out in the garden and work. And then the last thing to do here is to take care of our handle. So take this out of the vise here. Now, as far as handles go, these handles that we sell with our long handle tools are waxed, but they're not varnished. I don't like varnished handles because they end up splintering and they're just rough on your hands. So if you do purchase a tool with a varnished handle, I'd highly recommend taking a sanding sponge or something like that and just getting all that varnish off of there to expose the bare wood. It's going to feel a lot nicer on your hands. These wax handles are really nice and they take the oil well. So I'm just going to take my rag here, more linseed oil on there, and we're just going to rub this on that handle there. Get it nice and coated. And sometimes it helps put several coats on here. So we'll put one coat, wait a little bit, let that dry, and then put another coat on there. And that's going to give you some nice color on the handle, but also going to keep it nice and conditioned so this thing will last a lifetime. Get a little more oil here. There's no such thing as too much linseed oil when you're doing this. You want to put it on there good. And that's going to add a nice little color. Got some of that good old hand grease on there from using this thing. You can even see right there where it's starting to, it's a little thinner right there where I use it all the time. But that's what you want to see right there. Nice good color on them handles. And just, you can keep this, you know, underneath the barn. Definitely don't keep it out in the rain after you do this. Give that linseed oil time to soak in there. And you can even come in here a day or so afterwards and put another coat on there. I would recommend doing this every 6 or 8 months, but you can do it more often than that if you want. It's not going to hurt anything, just going to make this wood last longer. Now, as far as the maintenance on the wheel hoe goes, it's kind of the same thing. Now, a lot of people ask, do you ever have to grease these wheels right here or anything? And no, you really don't. These things are made with oil impregnated bronze bushing, so you should never have to really do anything with the wheel or kind of the main frame of the wheel hoe. Now, as far as the attachments go, the weed cutting attachments can use some maintenance from time to time. I've got this 12-inch oscillating hoe on here right now, and these things are made with spring steel, and over several years of good hard use, those blades will rust and may get a little dull. You can try to sharpen them with a file, but a lot of people just choose to put another blade on there. And we have replacement blades for all 3 sizes, 6 inches, 12 inches, and the 8-inch wide blade like you see right there. Really easy to change those out with just a few screws there. On the sweeps, like we see here, now this is a relatively new one, so it's not in bad shape. You can take those sweeps and dust them off, sand them off, use that file just like I showed you with that hand hoe, and keep these puppies nice and sharp. I don't think the plow blades need to be sharp. They don't come sharp. I don't really see any reason to sharpen those. Cultivator teeth, you might want to just kind of knock the dirt off those, brush them off, oil them. I don't really see any reason to sharpen those either. But the sweeps and the oscillating hoe, you want to make sure you keep those sharp. And then as far as the handles go, we're going to treat those just like we did that handle on the batwing hoe. So we'll take some of our linseed oil here. Now I reckon you could take the handles off if you wanted to do this, but I just leave them on. And you're just going to rub those handles down with that oil. Make sure you get kind of around those attachment bolts there. Just kind of put a nice thick coating on there. Rub them down, and they give us a nice color. Also make them last a lot longer. We'll just put linseed oil on those just like we do the long handle tools. So if you have one of those rainy winter days or a day like today when it's just too wet to get out in the garden and do anything, it's a great time to take your garden tools and get them in nice prime shape for when things kind of pick up in the spring. Like I said, it doesn't really take a whole lot to do this. Yes, you could use some fancy grinding shop equipment if you wanted to, but all you really need is a sanding block, a file, and some linseed oil. And it doesn't take long to get these puppies back in prime shape, keep the rust off of them, keep the handles nice and conditioned. And if you invest in good tools, they're worth taking care of. So take care of your tools and they'll take care of you. I'll put a link below to our wheel hoe success kit here so you can go grab one of those. You can take care of your garden tools this time of year. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring that bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you did enjoy this video, check out these other 2 right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.